Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Friends of Mortgage Heroes. I'm Andy, and today I have a new friend of mine, Jeffrey Czajka with Advisor Growth Solutions. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay.
Good job.
And so he's going to it's kind of a joke, not a joke, because Jeffrey today is going to talk about memory and how to, some things on how to expand your memory, do better with what your mind can give you as far as your memory is concerned. And I met Jeffrey from a mutual friend of mine who also had invited me to a training. And I hope that over the course of time, you see me demonstrate good memory because of it. Otherwise, I'm really not doing good justice to you, Jeffrey. So welcome to the show, Jeffrey Czajka.
Thank you. Excited to be here. This is great.
Well, thanks for coming in, man. I'm glad that I remembered the date and the time to get the obvious dad jokes out of the way. Like, duh, that would be terrible if I forgot the day and time that the memory guy is coming in.
It's rare that I ever hear a new memory joke.
I'm sure. Well, because you probably remembered them all.
Well,
are there any good ones? Are there any good memory jokes?
Not really, no.
There aren't?
I think it's all about delivery.
It's all about delivery.
At this point.
Okay.
I mean, I've been teaching memory for 25 years now.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where after 2.5 decades, you kind of have heard the vast majority of them. So it's about people's delivery and timing of it.
So do you have an example of one that is any good at all that might be worthy of consideration?
None that really strike. I mean, I think I've just become like conditioned to not remember them because they're just constant.
They're not
right?
good.
I mean,
yeah.
everyone's favorite one is learning about like who I am, or oftentimes I'll come someone, they're like, "Oh, who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm the guest speaker today." "Oh, the memory guy. I forgot your name." And it's like, how many times can you do that to me?
And I'm sure, memory notwithstanding, I'm sure people might have struggled here and there with your last name. What's you were telling me that you've had some interesting pronunciations of your last name.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different variety, right? I mean, it's 6 letters long. It's pronounced Czajka. So when you hear it, it's fairly simple sounding, but when you look at it, you have the CZ. There's only 2 A's in it. You got to buy a vowel somewhere. It's one of those things where it just, when you see it and you hear it, it just doesn't look the same, right?
Yeah.
So the 2 best options I've had for my last name come from one when I was young. I wanted to go to medieval times for my birthday. So my parents were
medieval
kind
times.
enough. They brought. I had to be like 9 or 10. I mean, I was a young tyke, and they have this thing where to get more money out of your pocket, you get knighted, right? And they take this picture and they put you on this poster, and like you got knighted. Well, they got confused on my last name. And so my last name on the poster of being knighted was about 26 letters long. I mean, they literally added every letter to the alphabet to come up with my last name. So
oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
That one was pretty good. And then in junior high, I was on the wrestling team. 9th grade as undefeated city champion. So I was pretty decent. But they introduced me at like home mat, like homeschool. People should know me this year, right? I mean, it's my 3rd year at the school. The guy goes, at 145 pounds, Jeffrey. And for the other team, he literally just coughed in the mic. I mean, these are my teachers. I mean, they're supposed to know me.
That's great. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you, but that's a funny story.
Right. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah.
This is a resource teacher. He knew everybody in school.
Gesundheit. I'm sure he sneezed when he said that, right?
Totally. It just helped me prepare for my match day.
Sure.
But channel the anger.
So I'm finding you in this place in my life and in your life, where you've done this for, you said 25 years. Where did the beginning of this all start for you?
It began in college. So it was one of those things where, before the internet, you had to go to the student paper to find a job, right? And in my sophomore year of college, I was swiping IDs at the gym. And my ambition was a little too high for that role, and so I needed to find something new. And I looked in the paper, and it said, marketing internship call. And that was the whole job ad. I had the same look on my face. I'm like, why did I ever call that job?
That sounds pretty vague.
It was bad. Like, I don't know why I did it, but I was just that desperate, maybe. And so I called it, and the person that answered the call or the phone was one of the co-founders of the company. He was like, "Hey, I can't talk right now. Like, I'm going to Paris with my fiance, and in like a couple days, I'll be back in 3 weeks. Can we talk then?" I still didn't know anything about the job, but I knew he was going to Paris with his fiance, and I was like, "That sounds really like I'd like to be able to do that someday." I'll talk to you in 3 weeks. And so he forgot to call me, ironically enough. And I called him back because
the irony.
I was that desperate for a job, right? And so we went through the interview process and ended up being a personal development company that sold memory training. And my new marketing internship was inside sales. So they gave me a stack of leads, and I had to take the sticky labels off, put them on a note card, put them in a box with 1 to 31 in it, and that pick up the phone and just smile and dial.
Wow.
And I was scheduling appointments for the outside salesperson to come in, do the intro presentation that you saw me do.
Wow.
And then sell tickets to the workshop. And so that was like my first real job in college was to do that. And I was absolutely terrible in the beginning.
Oh.
I mean, seriously, I could not convince anyone to schedule a free sales meeting.
Be more specific. What do you mean by terrible? Like you were getting choked up? Did you have the jitters? Your palms were sweaty? Were you stumbling over words? What was going on?
I mean, the experience was too bad to remember. I just know, contextually, there were 3 of us that got started at the same time. Me, another university student, and an older gentleman that already had some career experience under his belt. And so I kind of benchmarked myself off of this college peer that I had, right? Same day, same training, same everything, same setup. She started setting appointments and I didn't. And we started, it was around the beginning of May. And by end of June, I'm like, I've got 0 in sales, almost 0 booked sales appointments for the outside person. And she's starting to get commission checks because it's a 100% commission role, right?
Wow.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not getting paid by the dial or anything.
Sure.
So I need to start driving some revenue here. And I sat down with the other co-founder, as it turned out to be, and he started asking me, coaching, right? Like, hey, I'm failing. Help me succeed. And he goes, why is she being successful and not you? I, to this day, remember saying, well, because she looks better. We were making phone calls.
That was your answer for phone calls.
That's where it all started.
She must look nicer.
She did. But at the end of the day, that was my state of where I began. And during that summer, I had the opportunity to attend one of the workshops. Luckily for me, by August, I started to improve. And, it got to the point where, early September, I started scheduling 4 meetings in an afternoon and success just started rolling. The next year I was inside salesperson of the year. So slow learning curve, but it took off.
Yeah. Some sort of progressive catch up happened at some point. If you go from that to salesperson of the year.
Exactly. So that summer was big in learning true sales.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can't get much more true than that.
Yeah.
And I went through the workshop, and so I had the knowledge of the training, and then I had the opportunity to apply it to my schooling. So my senior year of college, I got to a point where I maybe was a little lazy on purchasing my books for some of my courses, and sat through some senior seminars and was able to participate. But then at the end of the year, you had to do your final. And that final was, here's the 13 papers we studied this semester. You got to do the essay on 10 of them. Ready to go.
Oh, shoot.
So luckily, 2 weeks before the final exam, the professor gives you the list of questions so that you can start to prepare. And I borrowed a book from a friend for a couple of days. And I'm like, okay, here's the 10 out of the 13 that I want to answer. Got, just the main bullet points out of here's the 3 subpoints or the 5 subpoints of this research, and I can expand on that later. So it took me 2.5 days of borrowing the book to get the main bullet points down on a piece of paper. And then I took those notes, went to a coffee shop, and 4 hours and a large cup of coffee later, I had all of the essays memorized.
Come on, dude.
And I walked in there, and I may have asked all of the classmates around me how their summer plans were coming along and what they were doing, and kind of disrupt their final review so that I could play the curve a little bit more.
Wow.
To the final.
Wow. Little thumb on the scale, huh?
You got to do what you got to do. I mean, if you got a slow learning curve like I do, you have to tilt the scale somewhere.
So they're grading on a bell curve is what you're saying.
You have to.
And you were putting your finger on your mind to work at the bell.
But
wow.
It was, without those memory skills, I mean, there's no way I could have done
Sure.
half the things in life. But
What's the so okay? Go back to when you were doing this. You're giving me this funny story about it doing in college. Like what at that time, at that stage of learning all this, what stood out or surprised you about it? What was something that you were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know like either the brain could do this or that I was capable of this? Like what stood out to you?
So for me, it was. I mean, initially it was that it was even possible. Right, because you see this, and think of the initial demonstration that you saw. Right, the first time we had ever met, did this little kind of overview presentation, and the speaker goes around the room and has the group create this random list of 15 things, and everyone's writing it down, and they get some time to study it and remember it, and the presenter's just kind of like standing there drinking their coffee while everybody's reviewing it. Right. And then all of a sudden, someone's put on the spot out of the group, right? You pick on somebody, they have to stand up and say, okay, you didn't get them all memorized. How about just 3? And they maybe get 1 out of the 3. I mean, it's not enough time. It's unfair, but they're
on the spot.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's just the chips are stacked against the person, but it's a fun way to highlight that everybody in the room feels the same way, right? I mean, everyone was like, yeah, I would have gotten 1 maybe out of that. And so the presenter goes around it and gives you the list frontwards and backwards, and they can, throw out numbers, and they'll give you the items that are associated with it or vice versa. And you look at it and you're like, this is like black magic. I mean, like this is unreal. Like let's go to Vegas right now. And so that was the first major impression that I had. And then the other one that came shortly after that was just the sales process behind it, right? I mean, it's this intangible skill set that nobody even knows exists. And within a short time, you can walk into a room and help people realize how can you help them better their lives, their careers, their skill sets, and learn something that is meaningful and impactful that you can't touch and you can't really see. You just get to experience.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes a lot of fun.
Like, did you just feel like a whole new world opened to you at that point?
So when I first learned it, my brain was like on overload. Like,
really?
Again, slow learner, right? I mean, back then, the workshop used to be taught in 7 hours over the course of 2 days.
Oh,
so
wow.
you do 3.5 on one day, 3.5 on the next day. Real time commitment. I mean, there was a little bit more. I mean, you saw a half-day workshop,
sure,
right? And essentially you got 85% of what that 7 hours was, just in a more efficient manner.
Yeah.
So that 7-day workshop, by the time I got to day 2, my brain was just fried.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't, my glass was full. In other words, like my learning just couldn't go any further. They also touched on some things like phonetics and how your memory and some of the things that you learn in the class can be tied to phonetics and learn about phonetical categories. I repeated first grade twice. I couldn't read or write when I went through first grade the first time. And so they had me go back a second time. And I was always a little bit slow on the whole English language piece of things. And so, and I had speech therapy as a kid because I couldn't pronounce some things correctly. So it's not like I really started with this advanced knowledge in any.
Well, I mean, the way you're describing it, it almost sounds like you were set back.
Yeah,
not set back, but you were maybe behind the curve a little bit at that point.
Yeah, and so like, you start interjecting like phonetics and all that stuff. I'm like, I still don't. I mean, I was a college sophomore, junior at the time, and I was like, I don't understand phonetics.
Yeah.
And so like you throw all that at me, I was like, I'm a little full. Like my brain just kind of shut down a little bit.
Yeah, I get that. Well, and I'm glad you brought up the phonetics things. That was one of the things I was hoping to talk to you about today anyways, was that, how phonetics can be used to remember things. And I remember you teaching the bottom up strategy from the bottom of your feet all the way through to the ceiling, not to the roof or the top, it's to the ceiling. Yeah. And it had to do with each of these little 10 locations on the body and in the room are each a different phonetic element that we use in the English language. It was fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that to me is always the interesting piece to me. It's not necessarily required to learn the technique of remembering things, right? Because the skill of being able to remember information is akin to having that filing cabinet in your office, right? I mean, now it's all digital, but if we think back not too far in history, we had these big filing cabinets, and if we had 1,000 files in those filing cabinets, and they're alphabetized, you could go get the Anderson, Jones, and the Zimmerman file pretty quickly, right? And that's because you know the alphabet. You know the system, in other words, for storing and retrieving that information. No one's taught that for our brain, right? I mean, as we go through school, as we go through continuing education, we're always taught what we need to learn and when we need to learn it by. Like the test is coming, like the extra anxiety and stress is coming.
Right.
Get this down.
Yeah.
But we're never taught the most important step, and that's the how. Right? So in the end, our brain's organized, like taking the filing cabinet, just dumping it out, tossing new files on top, mixing it up. And now if we were to try to get the files, if they're not on top, we just say, forget about it.
We don't even look for it. We don't need, and I think that, and the reason I'm so interested in having this conversation now, and this kind of point in history, if you will, and not to be dramatic about it, but it's like we don't require ourselves to remember a lot these days. I have the search bar on my iPad. I can just search for it on my phone. I can go to search on my email. I can go to search on my history. And so it's like it's not this required skill set, except if you don't have any of these things, it is absolutely a required skill set. So how have you found teaching about memory, teaching people how to remember things and do recall? How have you found that like change? I mean, 25 years has a lot of technological change that has required less of us to remember, not more.
I'd agree with that, right? So, I mean, I could jokingly say I'm married because I could remember a phone number. Because when I was dating my now wife, we were driving around and somehow we were joking. She's like, "Oh, you have to ask my dad that." And I said, "Oh, what's his phone number?" And we're driving down the 5 here in California, going like 80, and she rattles off her dad's phone number. And I had the wit to like just remember it real quick using the memory skills. And so after I dropped her off, we got done with our day, dropped her off at home. I went back to my apartment. I took the number and I made sure I had it down because I was like, I know this is going to come in handy in the future. It
was important to you. You're like, this is my potentially future father-in-law's phone number. Right? I need to ask him.
Long story short, it got to the point where like, okay, like I'm going to propose. I want to do the old school thing and ask for his permission. He just happened to be in Wisconsin. We're in San Diego. So I looked at my miles and I was like, okay, I have enough miles to get me a round trip ticket from San Diego to Madison. I have this one weekend window where I could make it work. And so I called him. I said, it just happened to be, I'm like, hey, I'm looking out a couple of weeks. I'm going to be, around your neighborhood. Can I stop by and chat with you? Because I hadn't met him yet.
Oh, man.
Totally cold called my future father-in-law. Didn't know him.
Cold called.
I was hoping he knew my name by that point.
Cold called this guy.
This was, we started dating in August, and this phone call was like end of September. Okay, so it was like
this is 6-7
weeks later.
In my head right now, Jeffrey, I have to admit something to you. This is what's playing out in my head right now. Ring, ring. Hi, are you interested in a son-in-law?
So it was interesting, right? And it was a short conversation. He's like, "Yeah, I'll be around." I was like, "Great, I'll be there." 9:00 Saturday morning.
Oh my God!
And then his birthday was happening right around then, so I used his birthday as an opportunity to send him a birthday card to remind him that our appointment was coming up here in a couple weeks.
This is great.
A couple days.
This is great.
And so all things being short here, he said yes. I proposed. We got married. The whole bit, right? So I could remember. My ability to remember his phone number made that opportunity happen. She didn't know I made the phone call or I made the trip. I escaped for like 30 hours that weekend, and it was covert. It was awesome, So that was really fun. But you asked me today, I don't know what his phone number is. I plugged it into my cell phone.
Yeah.
And now, if I wanted to call him, I just push his name. And that's where technology has really led us to, I don't want to say being lazy, but just really not have the reason to remember.
So, maybe I'm not the only one who's ever asked you this or is thinking about it watching this replay here, is, do you think that is it a capacity issue? I realize the question I'm asking because the brain seems to have way more capacity than we use or tap into.
Totally.
But at the same time, my curiosity is compelling me to ask, is it really just a capacity issue? Because I could have 5,000 phone numbers in my phone, but am I actually asking myself to remember 5,000 phone numbers? I'm not. Could I? Maybe. But what am I maybe replacing that I should be remembering in lieu of that? So how do you talk about that nowadays?
Very common question that comes up, right? Because whether it's phone numbers or names or product information or whatever the topic you want to assign it to, the same basic question comes up. And it really, the way I like to address it is from a prioritization perspective, right? So if information is at a critical enough stage or level, yes, it's something that I want to remember. And now using the memory techniques, I have a way to do that. Whereas if it's just kind of mundane information, not critical to remember it, not have to know it on the spot, something that's okay to go look up if I need it, great. You know what I mean? Maybe I use the memory technique to remember it for the short term and a situational experience, and then I just record it and let it sit in the archives for a while. I don't have to kind of messy the brain up, right? I mean, do you have the possibility or the potential to remember all 5,000 phone numbers? If you really wanted to, if it's really meaningful, yeah, you probably could. It would take a little bit of work, but do you really need to, or is it really that important to you?
Right. That's that prioritization thing. Like, is it necessary to remember all that in lieu of something else?
And I've met other memory instructors, because I'm not the only one out there. There's plenty of others that are out there. And some of them, there's one that jumps in my memory right away who used the memory techniques to remember literally chapter and verse books of the Bible. It was important to him. It was part of, it was important to him personally, but it was also a way for him to kind of demonstrate how you could apply this in different ways. So he would actually give people a Bible and be like, in this book, just, give me a chapter and a verse and I'll tell you exactly what it says.
Wow. Yeah.
And he could do it. Awesome. Great. Now I like reading the Bible, but I don't want to apply it that way.
Yeah.
So I could if I wanted to, but I don't.
Yeah. So I have I have so many curiosities now because we're in a different part of the conversation, like already, like super soon. But with the technological advancement that we're in with, AI, there's already these studies coming out that people are having the brain scans of people that are leaning on AI versus leaning on their own brain. Maybe this is a brain question, not just a memory question. Do you have concern that this like slippery slope of memorydom is going to get worse? Or do you think that we'll catch ourselves at some point and go, hold on, we are just completely turning our brain off and not utilizing as much of it as that we should, even to remain, like, I'll say, human to human compatible? Yeah. Maybe that's not the right way to ask the question, but that's just kind of how I'm framing it right now.
I think I get what you're saying, right? And I think in today's world with where AI is, and it's still kind of it's the Wild West. No one quite knows what it is or how to harness it and how to use it best, and everyone's excited about it. It really is that place in kind of the evolution journey for AI and technology as a whole. Now some technology is older, I realize that, but like especially the AI piece of it, where people are just immersing themselves in it, trying to find where it plays. What's the right place to use it? What's the right place not to use it? And my hope is, maybe I'm just optimistic here, is that over time, as we get to understand it and harness it a little bit more focused, that we'll stop relying on it so much for everything. We'll actually use our brains again. But it does kind of worry me looking at children that, they rely so much on technology to do things for them that they're not using those critical thinking skills, those memory skills, those the parts of the brain that need to be developed just by challenge and use over time. And I recently even saw an interview with a college professor who, he was is a medical professor, and he had all of the students not only turn off their phone, but put them away in their backpack so they couldn't see them. Like, not required, like it was required that you could not see a cell phone in the room. And after the first semester, he expanded that to any screen. So computer, tablet, what have you. Any, like, all measurable impacts in the class, the conversation, the intelligence, the scores, even his instruction rankings by his students, like students kind of rate their professors. He got the best scores of his career. And he was at the tail end of his career when he started making students put away the phones. And it forced people to be thoughtful, to listen. And the brain operates differently when you're actually writing with a pen than writing on a stylus or typing things in your paper?
It's all fascinating to me because, I studied psychology in college, and I've always been fascinated with behavior and the mind and all this and intelligence. And so I have all these like questions about it because with the way that technology has gone, you hear a lot of people, and even myself, I've said this, and I'm admitting this, like, it's like, why do we need to learn trigonometry? It's in your pocket. Your calculator's in your pocket, right? But I think I see more people coming around to is like, it's not about that you have a calculator in your pocket. It's, can you teach yourself the process for how to think about the problem, how to look at the problem, and then solve the problem formulaically. And when you don't have to go through the formula and you can just punch it in to get the answer, then we're bypassing all that part of the brain, like let's say stretching the brain muscle and the energy it takes to actually compute something with your mind. Yeah. And that's the part where I like and equally dislike the evolution of technology, because I've found myself now, I have to remember where I put something before I have to remember what's on it, right? So go back to the filing cabinet. Okay, cool. A, J, and Z or whatever, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, I know it's in the J folder. What did I even put in there? And I think earlier in my life, I would have remembered exactly what's on there. But I've substituted that now for, it's okay. I just have to remember where I put it. Yeah. Or, and even if I forgot where I put it, I can just search for where I might have put it by using a keyword search. So we've now, we've behaviorally come around to where we're almost at this like merger of my brain is also my lookup field in my computer or my phone or whatever. And they're sharing this space. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's like this weird, like, cognitive dissonance kind of thing happening.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I find myself, like, I can actually visualize it and see it in my mind. I'll be like, where is that? Right? It's not it's not what is in this that I placed there. It's, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I can see the note. It was in the bottom left-hand page of my notebook, and I'm just going through the notebook looking for the bottom left pages and looking for that note that's in that section of the page, right? It's in the back of the page and the front of the page. Like, my brain is just more kind of aware of those things, and that's a little bit about what the college professor was saying with his students. He's like, when people have to write down a note, their brain has to process everything they heard, distill it down to the important key thing, and highlight that in the shorthand notes that they're taking. They're not writing and transcribing the whole sentence. And so that forces the brain to process things differently.
I have a question for you, because now I'm conflicted. So a mutual friend of ours, Miguel, he gave me this thing back in 2016. It was called the Self Journal, made by the Best Self Co. And the Self Journal it's a personal reflection journal. It's also a daily scheduler and all this. And I got into the habit and the behavior of writing down the upcoming day's tasks I had to do, like manually write down where am I going to be, what am I doing, all that, versus just having my Google Calendar. I have that, but if you look at those two things, they mirror each other, because I knew I need to write things down to better remember them.
Definitely.
But I also have the habit where, in order to make sure I don't forget something, I write it down. And so I'm writing it down to make sure I don't forget it, but it's also leaving me open creatively because I'm not trying to cycle and remember the thing. So now I don't know, am I doing both at the same time, where I'm writing it down so I can make sure I remember it, as much as I'm also freeing up brain space because it's going to be there for me later when I turn the page to Wednesday or whatever. Oh, it'll be there waiting for me, and I don't have to be thinking about that constantly.
If it makes you feel any better, I do both.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where, depending on the time and the situation, I may want to just jot it down and move on, right? Other times it might be I need to kind of process it a little bit before I memorize it, if you will. And so I jot it down so I can go back and kind of file it away mentally speaking. Other times I'm driving in the car and I can't remember. And so I can't write it down, I should say, when I'm driving. So I have to remember it and use my memory techniques. These days I am the dishwasher in the household. So I do a lot of standing at the sink, washing dishes, and it's a love-hate relationship because I feel like the kids should be doing more of that. Somehow dad ends up being the dishwasher, but I have some of the greatest thoughts while I'm sitting there doing the mundane dishwasher. It's just a way for a perfect time for my brain to distill all these thoughts down.
Yeah. Sounds like a place where your brain comes back alive.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah.
And when you got soapy hands, you can't just stop and write something. So I actually use my memory skills sometimes doing the dishes so I can remember my thought later on. And really the having the memory skill isn't necessarily about what is right and what is wrong. It really just empowers you with more options throughout time.
So, okay, so I want to talk about this merger of like digital way of remembering things, handwritten way, and then this mental way. Can you share with people some examples? You're giving one now, like doing the dishes, driving the car. I was sharing the whole journal thing because I think I benefit from both on both ends of the question, which is sometimes I benefit from being able to write it down because my mind needs to be on something else. Yeah. And I'm completely task focused or project focused over here. Oh, I know I got to remember to email Jeffrey tomorrow. I'll email him tomorrow, I'll write on the thing. Yeah. But then also I kind of feel like, well, am I letting my mind off the hook? Yeah. By not making it do the reps, right? Like do the reps of remembering. And I'm genuinely asking the question because I guess I'm admitting too, is like I struggle with, am I helping myself or hurting myself in that? Am I actually helping my memory in doing those things or not?
So I look at it from a slightly different perspective of maximum effectiveness and efficiency, right? So in some situations, just knowing what we know, and I think we talked about this in the class a little bit, right? If you're not mentally present while you're trying to do something, you just don't remember it, right? I mean, it's like if you take the same route home from work every day, when you drive home, it's totally unmemorable. Half the time you don't even remember how
you're trail horsing it.
Exactly. But other times if there's a big accident or you go a different route, like you remember those things because your brain gets stimulated and re-engaged.
Oh, it's something new, something different, something dramatic or whatever.
Exactly. So in situations where I'm going through my day and I'm like, oh, I need to email Andy, and that did happen a couple times as we were trying to coordinate this, right? I was like, I need to email Andy, and I was just in the middle of racing somewhere or something, and there was a day or two where I wrote down on my to-do list in the office, email Andy tomorrow. It's because my brain was already at school picking up the kids so we could get to water polo, so we could do dance. So I was not going to be successful if I just tried to memorize it at that point, because I may have gone through the motions. Yeah. But it would not have been effective. Yeah. Right. And I just knew that. So I wrote it down and I succeeded because we're here talking. Yeah. And in life, we have to make the same judgment calls, right? It's not about you're cheating yourself or you're being lazy or this or that or the other thing.
I see that.
You now have more tools maybe than someone who hasn't gone through the course. Yeah. And you can just make more choices. Where other people, like, they don't have to feel bad about themselves because they don't have the tool. So now the only thing they can do is write it down or forget it. Yeah. You have one more option.
And I had started asking a whole different question and I went back to that. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm going to come back and go to the question I was, the vein I was trying to go to next, which was like, okay, so with all these tools, with, I can remember things, I can write things down, I can like type them digitally. What are the methods? How are you teaching people nowadays to use them together? What are some of the top ways you're helping people understand that there is flexibility in the memory where some things need to be known and stored right now? Some things can be reaccessed later. How do you share with people how to, I'm going to say, properly use the tools in our hands? Sure. Even though that might be subjective based on the person by person.
Makes sense. So I'll take a good example, right? I was hired by a Fortune 500 company to design a sales training process for brand new financial advisors. So they had this concept of, here's what we they were looking at it from a strategic lens of how do we help kind of grow successful financial advisors. They had about 90% of it wrong of how do you actually develop and train a successful salesperson.
That sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot. 90%.
Like, here's our idea. And their idea was about 25% of the way fleshed out and about 85% wrong. So
no.
It was an interesting situation to walk into, but I had the authority basically to say, like, you're the guy that's going to do this, so just let us know what you need for help and just lead the charge, right? So that worked to my advantage. And we redid the whole, and I wrote a whole year-long sales training program for these people. And in that industry, they're usually in about the mid-teens as a retention rate in the 2 years. Our blended retention rate in 2 years was 72%.
Wow.
Or in that like low mid 70s. So we did some things right.
Yeah.
And they AUM and sales and revenue, all that stuff was amazing. But what I taught them was you have to know the main outline of the sales meeting that you're in, right? I mean, the sales meetings are always going to take, different twists and turns when you get into them. Mm-hmm. But a good sales process is typically, if it's a consultative process, is going to have multiple meetings. Each meeting is going to have a kind of psychological path that it weaves. Like an arc,
yeah.
Yep. And so that, the meeting that you're in, you need to know what those main points are. Because if you miss the point, you're missing part of the cycle. People buy first psychologically and then second in actual action, right? Mm-hmm. And so in that, if you're not remembering those main bullet points of that arc, you're going to have a less than optimal sales experience or process. And then if you break that down a level, there's probably some key questions going in and out of each one of those things. So if you have those memorized, you can always kind of figure out the middle, right? But if you don't have those memorized, you're going to stumble as you try to transition points. You're going to stumble because you missed a point. You'll get back to your office and be like, oh, I never asked about this. Well, that's probably an important part of the sales journey for that person or the buy-in journey for that prospect. And so that's why you got to remember those, right? In the middle part, you can, depending on what they say to the initial question that leads you into that, you're supposed to be the professional, you can kind of bob and weave in the middle of that and then wrap it up a certain way and transition to the next statement. You get a lot of notes for that. Do you have to remember every single note? No. Right. I mean, and this is where you start to see, at least in the financial space, companies like Jump AI starting to come in, kind of an AI note taker. There's plenty of them. Zoom has one. Everyone has their own AI note taker now.
Yeah.
And it's great for efficiency and to free the advisor up to really key on the important barriers of the conversation and the connection points of the conversation. I'm still going to take some notes as an advisor. Like any professional, if you sit down with a prospect and they're sharing their important desires or fears or what have you with you, and you don't sit there and you don't take any notes, people kind of like, are you actually listening? Do you really care what I'm sharing with you? Like it works against trust, right? So it's good to kind of jot some of that down. And then it also helps you kind of go back to like, okay, you mentioned this. Let's make sure I captured it right and build trust and understanding. Those notes can live in a CRM somewhere. But because you're more focused on being engaged and connecting with the person, you'll actually remember more of that conversation. And the AI tool will just kind of catch all the finer details.
Yeah. So, so it's still originating in that live conversation, but it's going to maybe be retained somewhere else.
Correct.
How would you say, I did not have this question written down actually, so I just thought of this one off the cuff, which is, how do you think, or what is the relationship between memory and people having compassion for one another? Like if I just remember a bunch of details, I could just functionally rip through a bunch of details.
Right.
But if I remember something about the first time we met, or something that you said that really impacted my life, or a moment that I'll never forget, like these things that we say, what kind of connection do you draw? And maybe compassion isn't the right word. Maybe there's a better word for it, but that's just the one I'm using to try to ask the question is, what relationship would you say there is between something such as compassion and memory?
I mean, at first glance, I would say little. On deeper thought, you might say probably a little bit, in the sense that it helps tie back to the kindness and charity of someone's heart, right? But in the front of it, it's one of those things where I can remember a lot of things and I can zip through all the details. That doesn't mean I care, right? Going back to
the procedural recalling of details or whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe that's just because I'm not present and my mind is somewhere else and I'm thinking about someone else or something else. Maybe it's something along the lines of, I just, you give me a whole bunch of facts and stuff about cats. Man, I'm a dog person. I don't, probably not going to care as much about the cat thing.
Right.
Personally, I love airplanes. So you start talking about airplanes, my ears perk up. I'm like, I don't know the first mechanical thing about an airplane. I just know they're cool. They fly. It'd be fun to be in one, and it's great.
Yeah.
But you get to the mechanical stage. I'm like, what that piston does, okay, I don't. Right? Like, it's just one of those things where, does it mean I have less compassion and less care for someone? No. I mean, that's really a human heart thing, right? Whether you remember a lot or a little about someone, you still can have a lot of compassion. Yeah.
Maybe it's not an equal, like a 1-for-1 measurement of compassion necessarily, because it could very much be conditional still.
Exactly. And if you flip the question just a little bit, though, you can kind of turn that around and say the amount in which you care about a topic or a person will heighten your ability to remember the information. Right?
Okay.
So if you flip that question around, then it's very proportionally connected, right? Like if I care a lot about you, I'm going to be more in tuned and more focused and hear more clearly what you say. And that's going to help me remember it. If I don't care about the topic and, or the person, I don't mean it to sound as badly as it does. When you
I understand what you mean.
You're just not going to remember it as much, right?
So, so for people who are maybe feeling like, I have a bad memory. Like, do we say these things about ourselves? Or my memory's weak, or my memory's bad? However you want to like slice that. Where do people start to try to engage their mind and their brain in a process of exercising it into a place where memory can be something that they don't feel plagued by, or a poor memory isn't something that they feel like cut off at the knees with?
Shameless self-promotion. You start with our course, but we'll get to that later. The reality is, one is just awareness that it is a skill that can be developed, right? Your brain is a muscle, as the kind of old saying goes. Your ability to remember information is a skill that can be learned and improved upon. Now, someone who learned the skill, in the same class as you did, you and that person might be at two different levels of learning, because one of you used it more than the other, or one of you just had it sink in more deeply during the course than the other, right? I mean, there's any number of reasons why. And because you're still newer at the skill, you're only going to be at a certain level of proficiency. Having done this for a quarter of a century, it's crazy to say that. It's one of those things where I'm pretty proficient at it. And sometimes when I'm trying to sell the workshop, that's the challenge I have, is I'm too proficient. I look like I'm too good at it. They'll never get there. And so they're like, oh, he learned it, but I can't learn it, so I don't buy it.
It seems out of reach for people.
Exactly, right? So
interesting.
That from a selling perspective, I have to be careful on that. But from just a learner perspective, it's a skill that has to be learned. Now, what can you do to kind of improve the memory without going through a course, right? One of the things you can do is, as weird as it sounds, is clean up your environment. So a messy house leads to a messy brain. And there is some science behind this. I'm not an expert in any of that science, but like when mom said clean your room and you'll feel better, she was right. I mean, you don't realize it when you're a young child, but as we get to be adults, that spring cleaning thing, that fall cleaning thing, it has some power to it. So like, clean up your desk, clean up your house. I feel better when the dishes are all done. Like last night, hammered them out like 70 minutes because none of the kids did the dishes over the weekend. So
whoa. Did you say 70?
70 minutes.
70?
I got 6 people in the household, man. I mean, like every meal, 6 plates, 6 forks, 6 spoons, 6 glasses. I mean,
I get you. I get it.
And then when they don't do it on Saturday or Friday, and they're like, hey, Dad, we'll do it Sunday night. It's just,
man.
I mean, you got to.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not rinse and put in the dishwasher.
Yeah, you're washing.
I'm like the whole thing.
Well, you're at the counter doing brain exercises while you're doing
exactly.
memory exercises.
It's one of those things where, like you power through it and now you see the clean counters. You just like, you're tired, but you feel good about it. And it's the same thing that happens for any space in our life, whether it's your office, your car, wherever it is. Just clean it up and organize it, and that will magically help your brain function better.
I love that you said that. This just happened at our house the other day. My wife said to me, I need to clean up my closet. And I was like, why? She goes, I just have not done it in a while. I also want to have a clean look, and like I want like a new look at my space. I want to clean it out. And immediately when I came home, this is literally on Friday, when I came home, there's all these bags downstairs for giving away to Goodwill. And she goes, I feel so much better. First sentence out of our mouth, I feel so much better.
Always happens.
And rested well this weekend and starting the brand new week, like shot out of a cannon. I'm like, okay. So I didn't know that was the
hallway closet next.
I didn't know that's what you were going to say, but now we're like, okay, what's next? And fortunately for us, we are very organized around all the places in our house. Her closet in this instance just needed to have it just had excess. Yeah. And again, the only saying this because the first thing she said was, I feel so much better.
Yeah. And it's funny because you even drew the contrast of, it wasn't super messy. It was just a little, but there's
just extra stuff.
But it's not even about that, right? It's to the person.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's not clean to you, if it's not organized to you, it doesn't matter. It's just not organized. Right. So, like there's no scale to it.
Right.
It really is, clean to me. Now, I mean, you got a whole bunch of loose papers on your desk, like, oh, that's cleaner than, 4 inches high of stacks of paper.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of scale there, but at the end of the day, it really is, do you feel like it was cleaned out, and is it clean around you? For that to have a positive impact.
This is going to sound very funny, and I don't mean this to be funny. Mm-hmm. I cannot remember the year this happened, but several years ago, I remember asking myself of my physical space at work, is this promoting my productivity? And running everything through that filter of if this over here is not promoting my productivity, it's got to go. Anything that will promote my productivity, I got to bring in, whether it was cleanliness, organization, order to disorder, even just having drawers that like have some sort of semblance of organization, because ultimately those things are fighting for my attention and me to go resolve them so I can do the next thing. And if I'm being hired or looked at to bring this execution and deliverability at a certain level, I can't have all these things fighting for that and threatening our standard. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I think the other area that you see this is in exercise. So and I've seen this with my own sales performance at times when I've had big sales goals and I was slumping in sales, I probably wasn't exercising. And one of the magical things that I've seen over the course of my career in sales is, as I need to either get out of a slump or make big progress on a goal, having a physical goal outcome that's kind of simultaneously happening. Doesn't even have to be connected. I used to do triathlon before I had kids, so some endurance workouts. I mean, you had long schedules, big schedules, and all that kinds of stuff. But as those happened, usually the bigger events that I participated in were connected to bigger sales achievements. And it's just like discipline, the exercise of cleaning out the brain and processing, just all of the things that go into succeeding in a sport or an exercise tie into and feed into the rest of the areas of our lives. So that
makes so much sense.
Kind of clean the brain as well.
God, that makes so much sense, man. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, because you're talking about you're just kind of casually dropping triathlon, by the way. I'm sure it's multiple triathlons, not just one. You're like, I did it one day.
Well, yeah.
Did you have like a semi-pro career or something that I don't know about here?
Pro. I did hit the half Ironman. That was my peak.
Oh my God.
Of what I did.
Okay.
And then our first year of marriage. So we were married in May. We had a daughter 14 months later in July, and then that year I decided to do the Triple Crown here in San Diego, which is
dude.
It's half marathons, but it's Carlsbad, America's finest city, and La Jolla. Because of life and situations and babies and everything, I basically did them off the couch. But it was the year after my half Ironman.
You're crazy.
In pretty good shape.
Dang.
I'd die if I tried to do that now. I do wind sprints.
Yeah, how many years down? You're 16 years down the road from this moment, right?
Exactly. So it's been a while. Wow. It's been a hot minute, but it was It was great. I did the Wildflower half Ironman up in San Luis Obispo.
I've never heard that one. Okay.
It's
no surprise. Andy hasn't heard of that one.
It's like the Woodstock of triathlon. It's in a state park, and you camp out the night before, so you're sleeping in the tent.
That sounds cool.
Mattress. It was awesome. The run was painful because it's half trail and then on road, a pretty hilly bike course.
Wow. Was it still a road course? It was like road and trail.
The road and trail for the run. The bike was all road.
Oh, so it's still a road bike. It's not like a mountain bike. You're trying to do two terrains.
It was the swim in the lake, and then about 400 yards into the run, if I remember correctly, no joke intended, you hit this massive incline. So you barely had enough like energy to like get your pedals clipped in and like get up to speed, and you're hit with this huge incline.
I already hate what you're saying.
So it was a little bit of a rough deal, but it was a fun event and experience. And at that point, I was part of the Tri Club here in San Diego, and they do a sprint triathlon for all club members once a month, and it's free. At least back then it used to be. And so I got to the point where I would never pay for a sprint triathlon because it was too expensive for too small of a race.
Yeah.
I would just do the club triathlon. So
cool.
I did that like every month.
Every month. I just did that every month.
Right?
Okay.
And then the worst part was, this is when I knew I got to like snob status, is I did the club tri, and I had a friend come in. He was like, oh, I'm going to go for a run, because he flew in that day and he was staying at my house that night. And he was like, oh, I'll come with you. And we went for a 4-mile run afterwards so I could have a workout in. I was like,
my God.
I was like, I turned into that guy.
It's okay. I have that guy in my friend. One of my friends, Matt Schmidt, ran to the 10K and then ran home.
Oh my God.
I think, or was it the frog? Maybe it was a 5K. It could have been a 5K. Forgive me. It was the Frogman from like many years ago. He ran from his house to the race, ran the race, and then ran home. I'm like, oh, you're that guy. He was a rescue swimmer in the Coast Guard.
Well,
so
there you go.
You know, I mean, he's
that's all in a day's work.
This bro's like drowning people in like cups of water on the desk. But like, yeah, he was that guy. So I get it.
Awesome.
But there is something to be said about peak performance, and you're saying and memory, that those can go hand in hand, essentially. It sounds like
crosses your lifestyle, right? So you find discipline in one area, you start to see it show up in other places as well. I mean, it's that good or bad, you see experiences happen in people's life, and they start to bleed in other areas, right? People get bad luck or bad experience, and then they either go on that downward spiral and everything is kind of a disaster and they turn into Pigpen, right? Or they leverage it and turn it into something good, right? They learn from it, they evolve it, they set up their environment to not have it happen again, or they just continue because it was just literally bad luck that day.
Wow.
And you see that discipline kind of evolve, right? And part of that comes down to being grateful, I think, right? One of the, I think, good personal attributes we all could practice a little bit more is finding things to be grateful for through the course of our day and our life, as opposed to just complaining about the things that didn't go our way, right? Because I mean, we're all, Monday morning, Monday afternoon quarterbacks or coaches or whatever the phrase is. And too often that's the easy route to go to, as opposed to finding the things that we're grateful for.
What connection have you made over your 25-year career between memory and sleep?
It's easy to remember things when I sleep more. I mean, even as a memory professional, you could say, the days that I've done the demonstrations for people, right? And because usually that's where I'll see the impact of sleep more than others. When I teach a workshop or what have you, there's a little bit more ability to protect the time before that so I can get good sleep leading up to it, right? I mean, it's not like I teach a workshop every week on memory training. Be nice, so, if you want. But when we do those demonstrations to kind of really introduce people to the concept, that's when, if I didn't have a lot of sleep the night before, or if I was traveling and it was up late or whatever the case might be, it can be a little bit slower, right? The brain just processes a little bit slower because it's tired, it's not functioning at its best capacity. There's plenty of studies out there these days that talk about sleep and how your brain
health and all that
works, right? So those days I might take a little bit longer. It might be like 4 to 5 minutes for the exercise as opposed to 2 to 3, but there's other factors that are involved too.
How concerned are you about, and I guess this, I think I'm kind of like, I'm I hope I'm not like going too far into like brain health in general as opposed to just memory, but I have this concern about what we're now calling like a brain rot, or the younger generation's calling brain rot, from just so many things they're watching that have no value to them on the internet and social media, and its effectiveness and what it might be affecting in people's ability to not only remember things, but engage, the brain maturity and exercising the brain as a muscle. How concerned are you about that? Because you're not only just a trainer that's seen the evolution of technology like we've covered already, but you're also a father who has children who are now using this technology. I do as well. And, what I had to be able to do when I was in my 20s, 20 some odd years ago as a salesperson is different than I have to do now.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my proficiency nowadays has a lot to do with the long-term effects of having to do things routinely, behaviorally, that produce outcomes and results. So with the whole brain rot thing happening, what are you concerned? And if you're not, why? And if you are concerned, what's concerning you about it?
Definitely concern. And it's one of those things where I even have to kind of look at myself first, right? Because it's just as easy for me to pick up my cell phone and scroll as it is my kids or anyone else, right? I mean, we all get captured by this technology, and it's part of how the technology is designed and developed is to do that. Interestingly enough, though, I mean, I think there are some documentaries out there that highlight the people that created these technologies. They're like, hey, we don't let our kids use the platforms we created because of all the negative impacts. And then yet there's millions of other people that are like, yes, let's stick the tablet in front of our kid's face, right? So you gotta, like, I find that to be insightful at the very least, right? So from a father perspective, we've delayed sticking screens in front of our kids as late as possible. I mean, our oldest was like at the end of her 8th grade year in school before she got a cell phone. And at that, it was like the prepaid cell phone. And it was only because she was going on the East Coast trip or 8th grade trip to the East Coast so she could take some pictures. She didn't have, it was just like, we kind of got forced into it, right? And they didn't upgrade to an iPhone until high school because all of the clubs in school, you needed the QR code reader, and it didn't work well on the prepaid phones, or at least not as well as the normal phone. And so we're forced into this. And both my wife and I kind of begrudging like getting into this, like we're forced to give our kids this technology. And if I had it my way, we'd just get rid of all of it and get rid of any of that stuff we could for the kids as long as possible. I mean, it's part of today's world. So there's a utility in knowing how to use it, but it's so hard at those younger ages to have that happen, right? So for me, it starts with, I got to remind myself to put my phone away and not be connected to it when I get home. And that's a big thing for me. And there's probably as many days that I fail at that as I succeed at that, right? But sometimes, and as I evaluate my own self, it's about, sometimes I'm like, oh, I just need a break. I need to go have a mental escape. And that's where I end up scrolling. I'm like, oh, I don't need to scroll. I've seen these news stories already 4 times today. Like, I don't need to play this game anymore. Whatever it is, it's a way for my brain to escape. I just need to find a different place to escape.
Yeah.
Mentally speaking, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where, if we can learn how to do that ourselves, we can kind of teach those around us how to do that. And that, is one of those things where I think is important to self-master and then kind of show and teach other people how to do. So
in summary, it sounds like it's best to demonstrate it by yourself first and inside your own home.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially as parents, right? If you try to tell your kids not to do it and they see you doing it, we all know that's a losing.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, stop doom scrolling over there. I'm busy over here doom scrolling.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Just look over your shoulder and do it.
Guilty as charged. Yeah, no, I asked the question because, my daughters and their friends and even our nieces and nephews, they're all, I'll say, burdened by social media or just having a phone. Whether you have social media or not, people are still texting you things or sending you links to, oh, look at this that happened, or read that story and this. And I'm not sure it's all helpful. Actually, I know it's not all helpful. Let's put it that way. I know it's not all helpful or useful, But I guess I'm starting to find myself more curious about what the second and third order effects of that are going to be with memory and with the brain and with behavior long term. Because like I mentioned way at the beginning, it's like I can just go search for whatever I need to. I can type search over here and search on my phone and search on my desk and search on whatever because I don't have to remember anything. And I think there's a very human part of me that doesn't want important things to be forgotten. That feels like technology is threatening that.
Well, the interesting thing to me, and you said this a little bit ago, like about, the impact on sales and that kind of whole kind of mechanism of things, is the irony is I think the more you can take technology out of the sales relationship, the better sales relationships you have, right? Now, that doesn't mean don't use technology, but while we're in meetings, if we were sitting down having a business meeting, I don't want the phone anywhere near me. I am notorious for having the sound off and the vibration off on my phone. My kids would be like, I would call you, but you're not going to answer anyway. Because the sound is always off. Like, the phone is my tool to get a hold of you whenever I want to call you, not for you to get a hold of me whenever you want to call me. And people have that mixed up a lot. And so in the middle of meetings, they're connected to their phone, the messages that pop up on their computer or the tablet or whatever technology they have in front of them. And they're, I'm going to take efficient notes because I can type them while we're in a meeting. And that just takes away from that human interaction, right? Yeah, I mean, you might need to reference a few things here or there on the technology screen, but the more you can kind of eliminate that and focus on the person, at least for the sales that I typically do, it's a people-to-people type of business, right? People do business with people and they want to know them, right?
Yeah.
And they want that connection. So for me, that has been one of those things where I've just said, I'm old school. I'm using a pen and a paper. We're just going to talk and build that relationship. And that's how I've just chosen to really kind of operate. And now, I have Zoom meetings. I have CRM, I have a website, I have all the standard technological things, but when it comes to sales, that's about people, at least in my sales world. I know in technology, they'd say something else because they're buying computers and systems, but still people buying the systems. It's not about system buying systems.
I like the way you framed that, or not framed it. I like the way you answered that because it is their tools to be used at our disposal, at our choosing, and in the method that we want. And I think that sometimes we have voluntarily become slaves to them.
Totally.
It's calling me. Oh, what does it need? It doesn't need anything from me. It's trying to tell you something. It's trying to recapture your attention. And and I mean, even doing this interview right now, it's like, where am I going to put it? On the internet. Yeah. How are we going to send it to people? By email. How are they going to get it? In their phone or their desk? Like it's an interruption. Like we're in this economy of interruptibility that we've tolerated and put up with, in the hopes that what we're doing and making together will be useful to somebody.
Totally.
And I do hope that it's useful to somebody because I have like 19 million more questions I want to ask, but I don't want to ask you for more time. But there's something important we need to talk about, which is you have specifically something happening this month in September of 2025. You are doing an upcoming, you're connected to a local nonprofit project, and you're donating part of the cost to the organization. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the University Club here in San Diego, a great business social club in town. So if you're in town and you're not part of the community, definitely a great place to be business and business to be had. But they're going through a remodel and they're doing a grand reopening. And to kind of push their weight around a little bit, they're connecting their grand reopening to a charity classic to raise money for a local nonprofit called Olive Crest. And Olive Crest helps support children and families kind of in need and protect children from abuse and trafficking and really kind of help them be safe and be positive and have a good environment in their life. So because of many things of their mission and how I can connect to it, I said, I want to do something to kind of help kind of further that cause and bring awareness to them. So what better than to help children avoid abuse and things in their life than to, build a relationship. When you need to build a relationship, you need to remember their name. We just happen to have a program online we've taken from that live workshop that you attended, and focused it all in on how do people use this technique and strategy to be better at remembering people's names. And we deal with a lot of salespeople, and they all need to remember people's names, right? So it doesn't matter if you live in Alaska or California or where you're meeting people, you got to remember their names. You can help Olive Crest. So what we're doing is to incentivize people to help themselves, we're going to give you a 50% discount on the program. So it's listed at $199. You get a 50% discount if you use the coupon code OliveCrest. Anyone who uses that coupon code will take half of the revenue we get and give it to Olive Crest. So we're trying to really raise some funds, have a meaningful impact. We can do that better just helping other people. It's kind of the old Zig Ziglar, right? Help other people get what they want and you'll get kind of what you want. We want to have a positive impact on Olive Crest. It's going to help more people be better at remembering their names, and then we can have a positive impact on Olive Crest.
That is super awesome. Is remembering people's names one of the top things that you get consulted for or brought in for?
It's the number one thing that people always say when they hear I do memory training. It's like, oh, I want to be better at remembering people's names. If you ask anyone who's gone through any of our training, when it revolves around the memory topic, it's so that they can be better at remembering names.
And then hopefully not lastly, but lastly is, what are some of the, like right now in fall 2025, what are some of the industries that you feel you can best help and support by providing memory training? Like who that's listening to this should be going, oh my gosh, he's talking about my organization or my sales team or my department.
Yeah, it's typically the white collar service professional. So you think about realtors that deal with people. You talk about financial advisors that deal with people, mortgage professionals that deal with people, bankers that deal with people. It's those people-to-people businesses that transact services that need to remember their clients and typically could have a pretty negative impact on them. If you run into a client in the grocery store and they're like, hey, Andy, it's so good to see you again. And you're kind of like, hey. I think we've all probably been there before, but if that would have a negative impact on your business, the names program is probably a really good, or just memory in general is probably a really good course to reach out to me about.
Yeah. Awesome. And then where's the best place for people to reach you personally? I want to make sure we put your contact information in the description box below.
So advisorgrowsolutions.com is our website. My email is simple. It's jeffrey@advisorgrowsolutions.com.
I hope everyone remembers that. I had to throw it in there. Yeah, I had to say
one last memory joke.
One last memory pun. Oh, I'm going to find a good one.
I'm going to American Jeffrey too. So it's Jeffrey,
oh, okay.
not the G. We're not English here.
Not like the Toys R Us giraffe.
No,
Joffrey.
Joffrey.
I do have a friend who was named Jeffrey with a G. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's English.
It's Jeffrey with the J. All right.
There you go.
Thank you so much for coming and doing this. I have like so many other questions. I'm going to probably have to have you come back because there's things I wrote down that I didn't even ask you. I'm like, oh, we need to have a whole different conversation. So will you please come back sometime?
I'd love to.
Okay.
I'd love to.
Let's get on the calendar. I want to have you back like as soon as like 4 weeks from now. Like let's do this next month. I would love to have you back. I want to extend this conversation. I think we're also just at this critical moment where what you're doing in helping people remember and expand their memory and use and get in touch with all the capacity the brain has to offer is directly being competed with because of the technological age we're living in. So I am very keenly aware of that, and I think that more conversations like this are necessary, not less. So
perfect. Well,
I would love to have you back.
Yeah, love to.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeffrey, for being here today.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for watching Friends of Mortgage Heroes. If this is your first time to our channel, what you saw today is exactly what we do all the time for Friends of Mortgage Heroes. We talk to our friends in and around mortgage and real estate about what they do and how they can help people win in life and in business. And so glad that you are here. If this is your first time, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we drop a new video like this, and share it with someone who you know needs to expand their memory. Maybe hit up Jeffrey for some training, or have your department or your company or your nonprofit or your organization reach out to him for some qualified and quality memory training. Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Andy.
And we'll see you all next week with another great guest. See ya.
Thank you.